In the beginning, silence feels uncomfortable. It may even seem unbearable to some. This discomfort is not the silence itself, but rather the noise within you that has always been there, now exposed in the absence of external distractions. The mind screams for stimulation. The body grows restless, seeking any movement or sound to fill the void. But understand this: silence does not create chaos. It merely reveals what has been hidden beneath layers of constant activity. In our modern world, we have become addicts of noise, of information, of endless streams of content that keep us perpetually distracted from our inner landscape. When these distractions are removed, we face ourselves in ways we rarely have before. Edgar once described silence as the corridor through which the soul travels to meet the divine. This corridor, however, is initially filled with the echoes of your own unresolved thoughts and emotions. As you begin your 3-day journey into silence, you may encounter fear, resistance, even anger. Your mind will produce countless reasons why this practice is unnecessary, impossible, or even harmful. This is the ego's desperate attempt to maintain control. The first hours are often the most challenging. You may experience a parade of trivial thoughts, worries about tasks undone, conversations replayed, plans for the future. This mental chatter has always been there, but the background noise of daily life has masked its constant presence. Now, in silence, you begin to witness just how much energy you expend on these thought patterns. Some describe this initial stage as a form of withdrawal. Just as the body experiences discomfort when withdrawing from physical substances, the mind protests when deprived of its usual stimulation. The silence acts as a detoxification process, bringing to the surface all that is unresolved within you. Yet, even in these early hours, brief moments of clarity emerge, seconds where the mind falls quiet and you catch a glimpse of something deeper. These moments are precious signposts, small tastes of what awaits as you continue your journey. As the first day progresses, you may notice how your relationship with time begins to shift. Without the constant marking of hours through activities and interactions, time expands and contracts in unusual ways. Minutes can feel like hours, and hours can pass in what seems like moments. This distortion is actually a return to a more natural relationship with time, one not governed by clocks and calendars, but by the rhythms of your inner being. The silence also begins to attune you to the subtle energies of your environment. Sounds you never noticed before, the distant call of birds, the whisper of wind, the rhythm of your own heartbeat, become more pronounced. Your senses, no longer overwhelmed by constant input, regain their natural sensitivity. By the end of the first day, many report a peculiar sensation of both heaviness and lightness. The heaviness comes from facing the accumulated weight of unprocessed emotions and thoughts. The lightness comes from the first tentative steps of releasing this burden. What's essential to understand is that this discomfort is not a sign of failure, but of progress. Just as a mirror does not create the reflection it shows, silence does not create the chaos you experience. It simply allows you to see what has always been there, and what can be seen can be healed. Remember that throughout history, every spiritual tradition has honored silence as a pathway to transformation. From monasteries to meditation retreats, from vision quests to contemplative prayer, the practice of intentional silence has been recognized as a powerful catalyst for spiritual awakening. As you complete this first phase, resist the urge to judge your experience. Whether you found moments of peace or hours of restlessness, you have begun the essential work of turning inward. The mirror has been placed before you. Now, with compassion and courage, allow yourself to truly see what it reveals. The silence is not your enemy. It is your most honest friend, showing you exactly what needs attention within. And in the days ahead, this mirror will not only reflect what is, but will begin to reveal what can be. As you enter the second day of silence, a subtle shift begins to occur. The chaotic storm of thoughts that dominated your first day starts to organize itself into recognizable patterns. What once felt like random mental noise now reveals itself as distinct inner voices, each with its own tone, agenda, and emotional signature. These are not voices in the pathological sense, but rather the various aspects of your consciousness that have developed throughout your life. The voice of the inner critic, harsh and judgmental. The voice of worry, constantly scanning for potential dangers. The voice of desire, always reaching for the next thing that promises fulfillment. The voice of regret, replaying past mistakes in an endless loop. In the absence of external distractions, these voices become remarkably clear. You begin to notice how they have influenced your decisions, colored your perceptions, and often led you away from your authentic path. This recognition marks the beginning of a profound purification process. The silence now serves as a cleansing agent. Without the fuel of your attention and belief, these mental constructs begin to lose their power. As you observe them without engagement, a space opens between your awareness and these thought patterns. This space is the first taste of true freedom, the recognition that you are not your thoughts, but the consciousness that witnesses them. Many spiritual traditions speak of this process using different metaphors. Some describe it as clearing muddy water. When the water is still, the sediment naturally settles to the bottom, revealing the clarity that was always present. Others speak of untying knots in a rope, each moment of awareness loosening the tangles of conditioning. What happens during this phase is not the creation of something new, but the dissolution of what is false. The mental structures that have masqueraded as your identity begin to be seen for what they are, temporary formations, rather than your essential nature. This purification often triggers deep emotional releases. You may find yourself suddenly moved to tears without an obvious cause. Long-forgotten memories might surface, seeking acknowledgement and integration. Physical sensations, tingling, warmth, or subtle vibrations may move through your body as energetic blockages begin to clear. These experiences, though sometimes intense, are signs of healing. The system is releasing what has been suppressed, often for decades. Trust this process. The intelligence of your being knows exactly what needs to be brought to light and in what order. By the middle of the second day, many report experiencing what could be called gaps, brief intervals where thinking ceases completely. In these precious moments, you touch a dimension of being that exists prior to thought, beyond language. Though fleeting at first, these gaps become more frequent and prolonged as the silence deepens. This is when many begin to understand why contemplative practices have been treasured across cultures and throughout history. In these spaces between thoughts, something profound reveals itself, a presence that cannot be named or described, yet is unmistakably real and intimately familiar. The mystics and sages throughout time have given this presence many names: the ground of being, pure awareness, Christ consciousness, Buddha nature, the Tao. The terminology matters less than the direct experience, which transcends conceptual understanding. As the purification continues, you may notice that certain persistent thought patterns require more conscious attention. These are usually the core beliefs formed early in life or during significant emotional experiences. When these arise, approach them with gentle inquiry rather than resistance. Ask, is this truly who I am? Is this actually true? Where did I learn this belief? The silence provides the perfect container for this investigation, allowing you to examine these beliefs without immediately reacting to them or being swept away by their emotional charge. By the end of the second day, many experience a profound lightening of their mental and emotional burden. The internal dialogue, while not completely silenced, has become more spacious, less compulsive. There is a growing sense of clarity, as if a fog is gradually lifting. This clarity brings with it a natural compassion, both for yourself and others. As you recognize how you have been influenced by conditioning, you begin to see how the same is true for everyone. The judgments that seemed so justified before start to dissolve in the light of this understanding. The purification of the mental voices is not about achieving a state of thoughtlessness, but rather changing your relationship with thought itself. Thoughts become tools rather than masters, arising when needed and subsiding when their purpose is fulfilled. What remains when the voices quiet down is not emptiness, but fullness, a rich, vibrant presence that has always been the foundation of your being, though often overlooked in the clamor of mental activity. As this day of silence draws to a close, honor whatever experience you have had, knowing that the purification process unfolds differently for each person. Some experience dramatic insights and releases, while others notice more subtle shifts. There is no correct way to journey through this transformation, only your way, guided by the wisdom of your own being. The silence has now prepared the ground for what will emerge on the third day, a deeper communion with the divine presence that resides at the core of your being. By the third day of silence, a profound transformation has taken place in your awareness. The initial discomfort has largely subsided. The purification process has cleared much of the mental clutter, and now a new dimension of experience begins to unfold, one that has been described by mystics and contemplatives throughout the ages as the encounter with the divine within. This is not a meeting with something separate from yourself, but rather the recognition of your true essence, which has always been present beneath the layers of identity and conditioning. In this phase of silence, the boundaries between observer and observed begin to dissolve. There is a natural shift from doing silence to being silence. What emerges is a peace that cannot be manufactured or imitated, a peace that passeth all understanding, as ancient texts describe it. This peace does not depend on external circumstances or even on positive mental states. It simply is, unchanging, ever present, the ground of all experience. You may recognize it as your original nature, the awareness that was present before you learned to identify with your name, your story, your roles and responsibilities. In this space, prayer transforms from something you do to something you are. Words become unnecessary, as communion with the divine presence happens at a level deeper than language. Your entire being becomes a living prayer, a silent song of recognition and gratitude. The artificial separation between spiritual practice and the rest of life dissolves, revealing that all of existence is sacred, all moments holy. Many report spontaneous experiences of love during this phase, not the conditional love we typically know, but a love without object or cause, radiating from the center of being. This love is not an emotion that comes and goes, but rather the fundamental nature of consciousness itself when unclouded by fear and separation. It flows naturally, without effort or intention, touching everything in your awareness with its healing presence. The sense of time may shift dramatically during this third day. You might experience moments where time seems to stop completely, where the eternal now reveals itself as the only reality. The past and future, which normally occupy so much mental space, are recognized as conceptual rather than actual, useful constructs for navigating the material world, but not fundamental to your being. With this shift in temporal perception comes a natural realignment of priorities. Issues that seemed critically important before the silence may now appear trivial, while aspects of life previously overlooked, the miracle of breath, the gift of consciousness, the beauty of simple existence, take on profound significance. This is not a rejection of worldly concerns, but a recontextualization, seeing them from a vaster perspective. Physical sensations may also intensify during this phase. Many describe feelings of energy moving through the body, sometimes gentle, sometimes powerful. These sensations have been given different names across traditions: prana, chi, the Holy Spirit, Shakti. Whatever the terminology, they reflect a deeper integration of consciousness and form, spirit and matter. The body itself, no longer perceived as separate from awareness, becomes recognized as a temple, a sacred vessel through which the infinite expresses itself in finite form. You may experience moments of extraordinary aliveness, where every cell seems to vibrate with consciousness. This is not an escape from embodiment, but a full embracing of it, honoring the physical dimension as an expression of the divine rather than an obstacle to it. For some, this third day brings specific insights or revelations, answers to long-held questions, solutions to persistent problems, creative inspirations, or deep realizations about one's purpose. These insights typically arrive not as the result of analytical thinking, but as direct knowing, clear, immediate, and accompanied by a sense of rightness that transcends doubt. Others may experience connections with what feels like larger fields of consciousness, ancestral wisdom, collective intelligence, or spiritual guidance. These experiences, while deeply personal and sometimes difficult to articulate, carry an unmistakable authenticity and often provide exactly what is needed for the next phase of one's journey. It's important to understand that while dramatic experiences may occur during this third day, the true measure of the silence's efficacy is not in momentary states, but but in lasting transformation. The most profound shift happens at the level of identity itself, from seeing yourself as a separate entity seeking connection with something greater, to recognizing yourself as an expression of that greater reality, never separate from it. This recognition, once glimpsed, continues to deepen and stabilize even after the formal period of silence ends. It becomes the foundation from which you engage with the world, not as a fragile ego defending itself against perceived threats, but as awareness itself, expressing through a particular form yet never confined by it. As the 3 days of silence draw to a close, there may be a natural concern about returning to ordinary life, a fear that these realizations will be lost in the rush and noise of daily existence. But what has been awakened does not depend on external conditions. The silence has revealed something that was always there and will always be there, regardless of circumstance. The practices that can help maintain this connection include brief periods of silence integrated into daily life, conscious breathing, mindful awareness of sensory experience, and regular moments of gratitude and remembrance. These are not techniques to achieve something new, but reminders of what has already been recognized. The true gift of these 3 days is not a temporary escape from life's challenges, but a new way of meeting them, from the unchanging center rather than the fluctuating periphery, from peace rather than anxiety, from wholeness rather than fragmentation. As you prepare to re-engage with the world of sound and activity, know that the silence goes with you. It has never been absent. It is the canvas on which all of life is painted, the space in which all experiences arise. You have not created this silence. You have simply remembered it. And in this remembering lies the freedom that all beings seek, the home for which every heart longs. The journey that began as a practice becomes a living reality. The silence that seemed external becomes recognized as your very nature, and the divine presence that you sought reveals itself as what you have always been, beyond all names and forms, yet expressing through this unique life that is yours to live. If these teachings resonated with you, take a moment now to subscribe to our channel for more spiritual wisdom that can transform your inner journey. Share your own experiences with silence in the comments below. Your insights might be exactly what another seeker needs to hear. Remember, true spiritual growth happens in community. Subscribe, comment, and join us on this path of awakening to the divine presence within.